Now, one other thing I read about real estate, which is also kind of half true that I want to bring up here, is now that we are in the home stretch of wrapping up 2025, that this might be the time of year when you might be able to get the best deal on a house. And of course, this is another story that is spun in a way to try to get people to buy right now. And how do they spin it that way and make people afraid? Well, they say you should buy right now because in the spring, the prices are going to be higher. Oh, okay. So in 3 or 4 months from now, everybody's going to have a good job. The job market's going to be back to normal and inflation is going to disappear and consumer confidence is going to come roaring back, right? Is that what you're telling me? You see how, they make these stories and they kind of are aimed at trying to make people feel a certain way. But I want to push back against all this because I have seen a thing or two in the years that I did real estate, and I know how this stuff works, guys. The end goal for everybody who's involved in the transaction and their incentive is to get you to buy a house, because the best time to buy a house was yesterday and the second best time is today, regardless of what's happening in the economy. Now, is it true that mortgage rates are the lowest that they've been in a while, sitting in the low 6s if you're well qualified? Yes, that part is true. If you buy a house before December 31st, might you get a tax benefit and get deductions for your mortgage interest and the partial, very low amount of property taxes you're going to pay at the end of the year? Yeah, that's also true. Is it a reason to go out and jump into a major transaction that you're not even sure you can afford? Absolutely not. In fact, I would argue quite the opposite, that because inventory continues to increase and buyers continue to disappear, that waiting until next year is going to make it so that you're going to have far more opportunities to buy a home than you actually have right now. Already, this is the best time to be a buyer in the last several years when just looking at the inventory picture. And that inventory picture is going to improve even further by the spring of next year. Think about it like this. We're seeing the largest amount of delistings on the housing market than we've ever seen, which means sellers taking their home off the market in 2025. And at the same time, inventory's still been able to return back to pre-pandemic levels due to the lack of buyer demand. So a lot of these sellers that have delisted their property are almost certainly going to try again in the spring of 2026, because that's the most popular time of year when people try to sell their homes. And they are going to try again and try to get you to believe that it's a brand new listing and maybe even ask slightly more than they were asking a few months ago and hope that no one's going to notice. All you got to do is go to the listing history, and in most places, most states, you can see that information and see what they were asking before. See how many times did they try to sell it before you look at the house, before you decide to make an offer. Because there's a high probability right now that that house was for sale at some point this year and will be relisted again for sale next year, and hope that no one will notice. But anybody who watches this channel is going to know this information and is going to understand that that's an opportunity for you right there, at least if the seller is actually motivated. If they truly want to sell, they are going to relist in the spring for less than they listed this year. And that's a big sign that those people are finally ready to sell. And if the price they're asking is still too high, don't be afraid to offer them what you think the fair market value is for their property. A lot of people think it's an insult to do that. It is not. It is just business. If a seller is asking $1 million for the house, but the fair market value is $800,000, it's not an insult to offer $750,000. You might not win the house, and the seller might not come to grips with reality that that's what their house is really worth, and you might not be able to buy that house, but it will be a reality check for them, and they might actually wake up before it's too late and say yes. So I think there's tremendous opportunity coming here in 2026 for people who have been patient. And don't worry about all of these real estate stories coming about, talking about investors pouring back into the market. That's not happening. Don't worry about them telling you you have to buy a house at the end of the year because there's less competition, and come springtime, prices are going to be higher and there's going to be buyers back out in droves. Yeah, that's what they said this year, and it never happened. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here. And I'll see you in the next one.